Hello, my name is Avery Ceserano. I am an intern for the 2025 legislative session with the History Group podcast. Today I'm going to be with Alf, and he's another fellow intern. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey there, y'all. My name is Velasco-Guerrero. I'm also an intern here. Very excited to be here today.
And today we're going to talk about some of the Native American legends of Washington. I'm going to go region to region. I'm going to start with Eastern Washington. I'm going to do a legend from the mountains, the Puget Sound, and to the coast. And if there's time, I have a few other stories that I could touch on. All these stories are coming from it's a book, Indian Legends of the Pacific Northwest, the 50th edition, written by Ella E. Clark. She went to tribe to tribe, just doing different research, and she compiled all these stories together. And so, I'm going to get into the first story, Legends of Eastern Washington, the origin Palouse Falls. So, for some background, Palouse Falls is in really far eastern Washington. How familiar are you with that?
I've been living here for about a year and a half. Most of my time in Washington was spent in the Clark counties, southern east, western area of Washington. A little bit of Seattle here and there, but have not explored the east too much, so I'm not too familiar with that area.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. It's kind of like I was thinking about this before doing this podcast, especially with you and being a newcomer to Washington.
Right.
This is a really cool introduction to these places because I didn't know any of this this lore behind this stuff before.
And just like additional context, I'm also a history major, and so I'm just fascinated by all kinds of mythology and histories, especially of peoples who their history is usually not shared too much. We're not too aware of it. Most of the times, it's not taught in schools.
Right.
So this is a great opportunity to really
their tribe is not federally recognized.
Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah, I think a few other of these tribes aren't federally recognized either. So
right.
So Palouse Falls, it's the southeastern corner of Washington near Idaho. It's the Palouse River, Snake River. It's near that area.
Cool.
And there's this waterfall. It's probably the most gorgeous waterfall in Washington. It's about 200 feet tall.
There's a lot of waterfalls in Washington.
Yeah, there is a lot, but this one, it's 200 feet tall. It might actually be the tallest in Washington. It's
That's
huge.
So cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
There's a tribe in that area. Here's a picture for you to...
Very cool. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's like a whole canyon.
Yeah. So there's a whole canyon system for the Palouse River. I think part of Snake River too.
That is gorgeous.
And so that's where the story comes in. So these natives, they saw this canyon and this huge waterfall, and so they created this this story that was told about the origin of where this waterfall came from. So let me get into the story. So there were 4 giant brothers. Like I was saying, the waterfall was huge, so these brothers must have been around 200 feet tall to have formed this whole canyon area.
That's wild.
So they used oil from beaver tails to make their hair slick and shiny, and this is something they were very prideful of. They ran out of the beaver oil one day and were desperate to get more. The wolf people told the brothers that a big beaver was residing in the Palouse River. So the waterfall wasn't here yet, above where the falls are today. They went to the river, and the first brother hit the beaver with a spear. And he was like sleeping or whatever, and he gets struck by a spear. Yeah. And so that causes the beaver to run off. Shakes off the spear, runs off. The brothers catch up with the beaver, and they wound him again. And this time, so he's basically, while he's running away, he's such a huge creature. It's also a big beaver, and these huge giants chasing each other. They're creating this canyon this whole time.
I see.
And so they hit him again. He runs off, and he actually, if you look at Google Maps, there's a little tiny canyon that offshoots, and I think that's what they were trying to explain from the river.
Yeah.
So the beaver runs off to the left away from the river, forms another little canyon. The brothers catch up, hit him again with another spear. The beaver returns to the river, and so there's like 5 smaller waterfalls behind this. And so while he was trying to get away, he flapped his tail 5 times, and that's what they're saying created the waterfalls. Yeah, and so he's running away. The brothers catch up again. So he's getting chased, and
this constant conflict between the beavers and the brothers.
Yes,
and creating this ecological masterpiece almost.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So the 4th time he gets speared. This time, so he does run off again, like normal.
Mm-hmm.
But when the brothers catch up again, they actually fight. They get into their first fight.
Oh, I see.
And this fight, actually, if you look at Google Maps, there's these really huge rapids behind the waterfall. And that's what they said created these rapids, was this fight. And so he's losing the fight. It's a beaver against 4 giants. He runs off again. Brothers catch up, spear him for a 5th time. And after they spear him, this is where the huge fight happens. The one that creates this waterfall. Huge cliffs, huge canyons, and this waterfall is created, huge fight. Mm-hmm. And he's losing again, so he runs off. And this whole time he's trying to head towards Snake River to get away because he thought he would be safe.
Yeah.
After this huge fight, he runs off again, and he actually makes it to the Snake River. And so, but there's this character. There's this character that is in a lot of these Pacific Northwest stories. He's a coyote. Sort of like a god, like a mythological creature. Mm-hmm. He's watching from the hills, and he's seeing this happen. And so what he does is he kind of like hypnotizes, lures. He sings this power song, and the beaver hears it, and it makes him turn around. He's safe from the Snake River, but he turns around, goes back, fights the brothers for a 6th time, and they finally kill him.
Oh, dang.
So legends say there's this really round rock by the intersection of where Snake River and Palouse River intersect. There's this round rock, and they say that's the beaver's heart.
That's the beaver's heart.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so
gosh.
yeah, and also in the picture here you see these like ridges in the canyons.
Right.
They say that's the beaver's claw marks from the fight. So yeah, it's really interesting.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, to just like they imagine this huge fight that happened.
Yeah.
And on top of that, what I think was really interesting about the stories, it says a lot about their culture. Mm-hmm. Hunting was a huge thing.
Right.
And just this whole chasing this beaver this whole time. This beaver never had a chance, even though it was a giant beaver. But these brothers just had the advantage, and they finally won.
Yeah, something that I love about mythology, and you find this all over the world, is that as humans, we have this innate curiosity, this intuition, and this imagination that allows us to really perceive the world around us in very unique ways. And so sometimes there are these natural things that happen, for like in a canyon or a big storm or something like this, that kind of begs the question in people to ask, what is going on here? Why is this happening? What does this mean? And at times, because of the limited ability to understand like natural forces, these led to these kinds of legends, right? And so you find this all over the world, and this is super cool to me. And thank you for sharing this story. And this particular story really, like you said, kind of highlights the culture of these peoples, and it's important that it's remembered because it really is a part of us as a state and us as a country, that we kind of keep these stories alive because it's kind of what created the foundation for humans to exist in this place.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I've actually never been to Palouse Falls, but when I go there and just... I'm not going to really care about like how it actually formed because everyone kind of knows it's a canyon, water carved it out, whatever.
Right.
What's way more interesting is trying to see Palouse Falls through the way they saw Palouse Falls, and that's going to be just going to totally change the experience, and I think make it a lot better. And I hope it's the same for you if you ever get a chance.
Yeah, we should just go together. Honestly.
Yeah, honestly, make an intern trip out there.
Trip out, yeah,
that'd be cool. I'll just go on to the next one.
Cool.
Oh, actually, before I move on, one thing that confused me didn't confuse me, but what's interesting that says more about like kind of the lore with all these legends is the coyote figure. Why did he want to help these humans? And so it actually took me down a rabbit hole to learn about this coyote figure. So he was placed by the old one to help humans, to help the natives.
Right.
There was this huge beaver monster that actually resided in these same waters that this fight took place, and Coyote killed him. And that's actually where they say the Palouse people came from.
Yeah.
And so basically, I'm pretty sure that's the reason why Cody helps them, is because that's his mission. He's supposed to help natives, and he saw the beaver was getting away, and he...
Well, it's also interesting because you would imagine in a typical, maybe like in a modern sense, the beaver wouldn't be seen as the villain because the beaver is mostly a peaceful animal. It's a vegetarian animal. So, and the coyote is, hunter and in a kind of more violent way that it gathers its food. But I think that it's fascinating that, in their perspective, it's actually the opposite, because probably what was going on as well was that humans were probably also becoming, and humans and coyotes were becoming codependent with each other. And they were probably helping each other reach their goals, the same way that humans domesticated wolves and make them into dogs.
Right.
I imagine there must have been some kind of similar history there with humans here on this continent.
Yeah.
And so that's very fascinating that in their mythology that's kind of displayed through this relationship between the coyote as like a figure of guidance and help and strength.
That's a great point. That is a theme throughout all these stories. Animals are such a crucial part of the plots of these animals. And they're not just animals. They have motives, and they have they're human almost.
Oh, yeah.
And which is really interesting.
For
so so that kind of takes me to our next story. So this one's going to be the legends from the mountains. So the origin of Mount Si in the forest. Have you heard of Mount Si?
No, I have not.
So
I can look it up.
So I-90 going Seattle to Eastern Washington over the pass. Yeah, that's Mount Si. It's a pretty tall.
This state has so much beauty in it.
Yeah, I know, it's a
crazy.
beautiful mountain.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of like the origin of that mountain and the
Got it.
forest surrounding.
Okay.
So yes, up in the mountains, going over the pass into Eastern Washington from Seattle. So the moon. So this comes from the Snoqualmie tribe. The moon in their language, the moon's called Snoqualm. Asked Spider to make a rope from the sky to Earth. Fox and Blue Jay found this rope and climbed it to the sky. Blue Jay picked a hole into the sky, and then they jumped through this hole, and Fox saw a lake that he got into and turned himself into a beaver. Meanwhile, Blue Jay found a tree to perch on. Snoqualm, the moon, set a trap in the lake, but Beaver became entangled in it. When Snoqualm caught Beaver, he skinned him and hung up his skin to dry, and threw his body into the smokehouse. When Snoqualm fell asleep, Beaver got up, put his skin on, and escaped. Apparently, he was alive still. When he left the house, the smokehouse, he saw a whole forest that he wanted to take back to Earth. So they're still in the sky world. The sky world's got its forest up there. With the spirit powers, he made the forest small enough to carry in his arms. And then he found that Snoqualm had hidden away the sun and the ability to make daylight, fire. So he turned back into his fox form and took the sun, daylight, and the forest back to Earth. The people, like the natives, rejoiced because they no longer had to live in darkness because he brought the sun and fire. The forest Fox stole and planted became the forest that covers the Cascade Mountains now. When Snoqualm finally woke up, he saw what Fox had done and followed his footsteps to Spider's ladder. As he climbed down Spider's ladder, it broke and he fell to the ground and turned into a mountain, which is now Mount Si. So
that is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Story.
Interesting. Yeah, they saw the moon and they're like,
yeah, it's almost like an Earth creation story, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's a story about how the Earth came to be and kind of the forces behind it.
Right. Yeah, because before they thought there was no sun until Fox/Beaver brought it. So this one really, I think out of all these stories, this one confuses me the most. I had the most questions on this. So, small question: what happened to Blue Jay? He perched on a tree in the sky world. What happened to him? I think he might have just got shrunk down when Beaver.
Yeah, could maybe like a connection there between Blue Jay as this creature that is in the coexisting within the forest, and then once the forest was brought down to Earth, it kind of led to the rest of the animals or maybe other creatures that inhabit it now. Maybe that could be kind of like a connection there.
Yeah. There's more than just Blue Jay. There's other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To make a comparison, maybe like a Noah's Ark kind of thing, where maybe animals were brought from one place to another after some kind of event happens and they repopulate this new area or whatever.
Yeah,
like that.
and I'm glad you brought up Noah's Ark. I wish I had time to include the story, but there's several tribes with stories exactly to Noah's Ark. Like, there was one where instead of an ark, Mount Rainier was a place where this family came and the rest of the world was considered evil by the Creator, and he flooded the world, and this family survived on top of Mount Rainier. And everyone,
interesting,
just like Noah's Ark.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
I wish I had time to talk about it, but I
next podcast.
Yeah, next podcast. The problem was I wanted a story from a local tribe describing a local thing. That story I was telling you is from, I think, the Skokomish tribe. That's in the Puget Sound area, and I'm like, I wanted a Puget Sound story about the Puget Sound.
Yeah.
So
well, this is a great story. I really enjoyed it. I love the idea of the moon being this. Again, like almost like this deity that is helping humans or just the Earth in general kind of reach its full potential in a way,
Yeah, it is very interesting. But I think the most interesting part is if I read the story several times to figure this out, and it's still puzzling me. If the moon fell and created Mount Si, why is the moon still up there?
Well, it might be, maybe
Part of him fell?
just a part. Yeah, maybe it was just like a piece of the moon fell, and that became the mountain. And maybe it's almost like a gift, right? Like this, we're always living around this part of this cosmic force, this cosmic power. It's part of us as much as we are part of it. You know?
Right.
So I think that's pretty fascinating to think about.
I think that sounds about right. Or maybe it's like the physical form of the moon fell down, but the spiritual form stayed in the sky.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's another great way of looking at that.
I think it'd be really interesting to like maybe meet a member of this tribe and ask them about it. Yeah,
I think so.
So let's go to the Puget Sound. I've been kind of going east to west.
Okay.
We're going into the Puget Sound now. This is from the Snohomish tribe near Everett. The story is called "Pushing Up the Sky." So the creator made the world by starting with the east and going west. He wanted to give unique languages to the tribes as he went. The creator reached the Puget Sound and liked it so much that he decided to stop there. He had many languages left over, so he dispersed the remaining languages among all the tribes in the Puget Sound area, which is why they speak so many different languages. The people became unhappy with how the world was created because the sky was too low. People would constantly hit their heads up against it and find themselves in the sky world after climbing trees and mountains. I mean, what a trip. Like, you climb a tree and you're like in a whole new dimension. A group of wise men came together to form a plan to lift the sky. A very old and wise man suggested that everyone and everything should push the sky up simultaneously. The problem was that so many languages were spoken, making communication difficult among all the tribes. Another wise man solved this problem by suggesting we use the words "Yah-ho" to signal the push. This phrase has the same meaning across all languages. It means lift together. How convenient is that?
That is so cool.
I mean, there's just Yahoo means the same thing across all these languages.
It worked.
Yeah, lift together. It's kind of like a nuance or like specific. What's the word?
Well, when you say Yahoo, I imagine like maybe people like. I think about people like rowing a boat together.
Oh.
How they kind of like all simultaneously kind of have this urge to just kind of let out this energy through their vocal cords.
Mm-hmm.
So like that to me kind of signals what is going on here. It's like, hey, this is almost something so guttural and so like innately human, almost animalistic, that no matter what language you're talking, we all understand it and we're all in the struggle kind of together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you put it really well. I think that's actually why this the tribal member leader actually he references this story a lot because it's like it's very unifying. Yeah.
I mean, I'm loving it so far.
Right. So it was decided that a message would be sent asking all the people and animals on a specific day to push the sky up when the wise men called out Yahoo. The day came and the wise men signaled the people and animals. People used long poles, like literal long poles, to push the sky up, and the birds would push up the sky with their wings. They kept pushing harder every time the wise men yelled Yahoo. This continued until they lifted the sky to where it is today. However, there were I'm kind of a star nerd, so this part is really interesting to me. So, however, there were 3 hunters going after 4 elk that never got the message. They were near the border between the earth and the sky during this day. The elk went into the sky world, and the hunters chased after them. They would turn into the stars that make up the Big Dipper.
Wow.
You know the
Yeah. Big Dipper.
So the 3 stars making up the panhandle are the 3 hunters, and the 4 stars that make up the pan are the elk. And if you look really closely, there was a little star next to the 3 of the panhandle.
Right.
That small star, one of the hunters had a dog with them. And that's supposed to symbolize their dog.
What a cool story.
Yeah.
It's maybe my favorite one so far.
Yeah, it's such a cool, like it describes, like we always hear the Greek versions of how the constellations.
Right. But this is such a unique take on this.
So unique.
Maybe better.
Maybe honestly, yeah, it's kind of cooler. So to this day, like we were just talking about, when the tribe is doing difficult work or lifting something heavy, they will shout together Yahoo to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
I really love this one. I think what I really like about this one is not only is it like really human in the sense that, we're talking about language, we're talking about cooperation, we're talking about people hunting and fighting for their own survival, but I think something that's really cool about this story is that it's kind of really displaying that for humans, nature is this beautiful thing that we're constantly in almost like this push and pull relationship with. nature didn't just spawn perfectly, and humans didn't just spawn perfectly. We had to kind of work our way around it, and it was only through cooperation and unifying ourselves with each other and screaming Yahoo that we were able to actually make it through and survive and thrive and be in the place we're today. And I think this is a beautiful story.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly. It's both unifying and very descriptive of the human experience.
Yeah, I think so.
So here's the last one. I might have time for one more. We'll
we
see.
have time.
So we're finally at the coast. The origin of the Chinook Indian or Chinook natives. So the book has it as the Chinook Indians. So the Chinook tribe is by the mouth of the Columbia River. It's near the border between Washington and Oregon. I think
I'm more familiar with this tribe simply because I've been living in that area, and it's something that people they do discuss and talked about.
Because you're from Vancouver, right? Or you're
living in Vancouver.
Living in Vancouver.
Yeah, so right by the Columbia. So I'm a little more familiar with this tribe.
Yeah, so like mouth of the Columbia River, and they're on the coast.
Okay.
So whaling's like pretty important to their culture, and so that's what this story is about, which is why I chose this one. So, the South Wind was traveling north and met an old giant woman. Southwind asked the woman for food. She told him she had no food, but offered him a net to catch fish. Southwind took the net and cast it into the ocean, after which he caught a small whale. He wanted to cut the whale to get its blubber. The giantess warned Southwind to cut the whale across the back. Southwind did not listen, and instead he cut the whale crossways. So, I think crossways on its belly instead of its back.
Okay.
And attempted to collect its blubber when the whale turned into a large bird. The bird was so large that it blocked the sun, and every flap of its wings would shake the earth. This creature was called Thunderbird, which is a really cool name.
That is very cool.
It flew away and perched itself on Saddleback Mountain, near the mouth of the Columbia River. The giant woman went after the bird and eventually tracked down its nest. There it laid giant eggs. The woman cracked an egg, but she thought it was no good, and she threw it down the mountain. When the egg reached the bottom, it had turned into a Chinook native. The giant woman kept throwing eggs down the mountain. One by one, they turned into Chinook natives. This is the origin of the Chinook tribe. Seeing what the woman had done with the Thunderbird's eggs, Thunderbird and Southwind teamed up together to get their revenge. However, they could not find her, and so to this day, they still travel north together looking for her, which I believe what that's supposed to symbolize is the changing seasons and the migration of birds, because south wind travels and with the birds.
This is a fascinating story.
Yeah. Yeah, it says a lot about how fishing and whaling was important to them, and also how they interpreted the changing seasons.
Well, there's also this message of almost disobeying natural law, because the south wind not the south wind, but you're right, the whale was not cut in the proper manner, and so it was this kind of changing of maybe tradition or something that led to the bird, which led to the eggs, which led to the people, right? So it's almost like this set of events that was originated from this breaking of some kind of understanding of the way things should be done.
Yeah,
that's very fascinating.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the book actually goes into that a little bit. They were talking about how to this day the first salmon they catch, and other aquatic animals that they hunt for, they still cut them from the back and not crossways. I think the first one. I'm not totally sure. I'm not familiar with
exact practice.
Yeah, but if you're listening, check out the book. Alf, check out the book.
I'm going to check out the book. Everyone listening, check out the book.
Yeah. So yeah, it's cool. It's I love how these stories just explain some of the traditions they have.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So I think we got time for
honorable mentions.
Yeah, honorable mentions. So I have two, and I think I'm gonna let you choose, Alf.
Well, I really like this longer one, so we can do that one.
Okay. Kulshan and his two wives.
Mm-hmm.
So this is from the Lumi tribe, which is close to me. I'm going to Western and Bellingham, so the Lumi tribe is right there.
The local tribe.
Yeah, it's a local tribe. Cool. And so the tribes have names for all the mountains, I don't know, you familiar with how they want to change Mount Denali to Mount McKinley?
I have not really kept up with that too much. I had a question, though. Is this tribe strictly within the Washington kind of territory, or is it also kind of into Canada a little bit?
So Lumi Nation is actually federally recognized, so they have...
okay, I see.
Yeah, but I think their peoples might...
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure.
Before there was ever any real, borders established.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they were kind of maybe even into the Canada.
Right, they didn't care about it.
Yeah, that was not a thing in that time. Yeah, right.
So I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
But what's cool about this story is it kind of describes the San Juan Islands.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I imagine parts. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah, Kushan is the native name for Mount Baker.
Okay.
Like Mount Rainier, I don't know, the native name is Tahoma.
I see.
Mount St. Helens is Lewitt, I think. Or
Okay.
it changed, depends on the tribe.
Right.
Which is really cool, and I wish, I prefer if...
Yeah, I think...
Like, they named it first. Like,
yeah, we should just respect it, maybe.
I think Mount Baker was named after an explorer's lieutenant.
Yeah.
I forgot his first name, but
Right.
something. Yeah. So, anyway, so this is kind of explains not only the origins of Mount Baker, but the San Juan Islands and Mount Rainier.
Cool.
So, Como Kushlan, his full name, married 2 wives, which was customary in their tribe. The first wife's name was Clear Sky. She was the more beautiful one. The other wife's name was Fair Maiden. She was not as beautiful, but she was kinder. For several years, Clear Sky was Kushlan's favorite wife. They would have 3 children together. However, Fair Maiden won his heart through her kindness. Seeing this, Clear Sky became jealous and told Kushlan that she was leaving. He told her that she was free to go. Clear Sky hoped that he would beg her to stay, so she packed and left slowly. She packed her seeds, roots, and plants to take with her. Kushlan never stopped her from leaving despite the children crying for her. Clear Sky left far south and would look back standing on her toes to see if he would call for her. He never did. She would become taller every time she looked back. In time, she became extremely tall. She finally settled on a tall hill where she could see her husband and children. Fair Maiden stayed for a while Kushlan and... she stayed a while with Kushlan and she would become pregnant. She told him that she needed to see her mother. Her mother is an island in the Puget Sound, just for context. So it wasn't an actual human. It was just an island.
He was born from the island.
Yeah. Kushlan wanted to help her, and so what he did was he called upon all the animals with claws: the beavers, marmots, bears, cougars, and even rats and mice. They carved out a channel, and Kushlan flowed water coming off nearby mountains into it. This is now Nooksack River. And there's actually another tribe nearby called the Nooksack tribe. I don't think they're federally recognized, but Fair Maiden canoed down the channel and entered the Puget Sound. She went to a few islands to get to her mother. She decided to stop and look over the water in search of a good place to stay. Fair Maiden has a tall figure, and as a result, the wind would blow around her, creating whirlpools that sucked in people. The Changer, the Changer is another name for coyote,
Okay.
I believe.
Like that coyote deity figure? Or?
Yeah, yes. So the Changer saw this and told Fair Maiden to lie down because if she didn't, these people would keep getting sucked into these whirlpools that she was creating. She did not. She did what she was told, and the Changer turned her into Spiden Island, which is the name of the island right now on Google Maps. When her child was born, she became pregnant from Como Kushlan. It turned into the smaller Sentinel Island, which is really cool. It's a really tiny island, and the two when you look at them, you can see the mother-child sort of thing going on.
That's so cool.
Kushlan took his. So he's like, where do my wives go? My wives are just gone now.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm going to take my three children into the mountains so that he could see his wives. As they went into the mountains, they stretched taller and taller. Kushlan became Mount Baker. One child became Mount Shuksan, which is if you go to Baker Lake in that area, there's this really cool mountain right next to Mount Baker. And so that's his son. And then nearby, there's the twin sister mountains that were the other two kids.
Yeah.
So, and then to go back to Clear Sky, that tall hill she was on, and she was tall herself, she became Mount Rainier. And the seeds and roots she brought with her spread, and it's the reason why there are so many colors of flowers on Mount Rainier.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is fascinating.
Yeah. This one is really cool. It says, it's very interesting for me to hear that they would have two wives. That was just what was customary. And also that struggle that existed probably, which is why the story even ever formed.
Something that I find fascinating, and it's funny that we're doing this on Valentine's Day because
right.
It's almost like this conflict between both lovers leading to these beautiful kind of natural formations. It reminds me a lot of a story. It probably is also a native story, although when it was taught to us, it wasn't put in that perspective. But in Mexico, in Monterrey, Nuevo León, there is a sierra like this mountain, and it has
Wow.
these curves, almost like it looks like a saddle of a horse almost. But these two peaks, there's a legend that goes with them that these were once lovers as well, who
Wow.
through their love became eternal by forming into these mountains. And so, every time that I look at them when I would visit as a kid, I would look up and I would imagine this story. And
Wow.
this story that you shared reminds me a lot of this. And it's kind of beautiful that there are these connections between humans and nature and these almost like eternal, geological things around us that just signify so much to us,
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. It really says a lot how love is so important to humans.
Yeah.
And we see these huge, incredible
Mhm.
pieces of rock, and we're like,
Yeah.
there's love there.
There has to be something more than just rock there.
Yeah.
And then love does transcend in this very beautiful way in a lot of human stories, and I think this is a great one that kind of illustrates this.
Yeah. This is probably my favorite story just because it's so close to where I'm living now
Mhm.
when I'm not at the internship.
Yeah.
And so I mean, after learning this stuff, I'm definitely gonna look at some of these features different.
Very cool. Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I honestly want to explore each of these different stories more thoroughly through actually being there and experiencing them myself, because that's the only way that we're going to actually kind of understand why and how these stories were put together. It's by kind of being there ourselves and really capturing that moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I'm glad I had the opportunity to share these stories with you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a super great pleasure.
Of course, Alf. Well, thanks for listening. Take care. Have safe. Be fun.
Yeah,
See ya.
be on the lookout for my podcast.
Be on the lookout for Alf's podcast coming
Sometime in March. I think.
sometime in March,
Yeah.
because you're the whole
I'm
semester.
the last one, yeah.
Yeah.
The very last one.
So, yeah.
Alright,
Stay
talk to
tuned,
y'all later.
guys. See ya.